Tyler Shough highlights, ladies and gentlemen. This is Underdog Sports. So Underdog's done a really good job this draft process of kind of highlighting literally every player. I mean, they've got a ton of content out there, so good on them. We are going to watch the highlights and talk about Tyler Shough here. Tyler Shough is the franchise quarterback of the New Orleans Saints. So he is the present, the past, the future. He's everything we got. So let's go ahead and watch a little bit of this and see what we have, ladies and gentlemen.
Quarterback, Tyler Shough.
25-year-old quarterbacks with just one full season of starter reps typically put right in the recycle bin. But to me, Shough's tape is at least too good to completely write off. Unlike the other quarterbacks in this class, he's 6'5". There's actually reps of him playing under center. He actually ran at the combine too, showcased 4.63.
Yeah, so Shough, really interesting just kind of case study. So he is an older player by age. 25, he will be 26 when the season begins, but he only has 1 year of starter reps. Like most of the guys like Bo Nix or Michael Penix or Brandon Weeden even, who come out older, who come out with a lot of college experience, they're a starter for a few years, and just because of whatever happened, they come out of the college process later. But Shough wasn't really that case. Shough was, he was injury maligned. He went to a couple different schools, and then he finally has 1 year where he can put it all together and start. But even that 1 year is still kind of just like you're going off the physical attributes, the tape, some of the highlight throws. And they mentioned at the combine, he runs a 4.6. So on top of everything, it's like this guy's kind of an athlete. Like this guy, I mean, a 4.6 is Mike Evans, Ted McMillan, right? So for comparison, Spencer Rattler ran a 4.95. So I mean, this guy is a legitimate athlete. Physical traits are there. The question is, are you concerned about the age? Are you concerned about he's really only had 1 year as a starter?
Speed. So there's obviously some red flags that we have to work through here, but there are at least enough NFL throws sprinkled into his film to take him seriously.
Yeah, I think when NFL quarterback coaches in January, February start looking at, college prospects across the landscape, and they see a guy that is just like to me, a true pocket passer, where he hits his back foot and throws outside breaking routes or throws middle of the field routes or throws layered throws down the field, then they are going to be intrigued. And that is definitely what soon to be in September 26-year-old Tyler Shough brings to the table. So that is definitely.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at this right here, he, again, is kind of a conundrum. It's kind of like a paradoxical situation because he is older and experienced, but at the same time, he's incredibly raw. And what you're drafting here is 6'5", 220 pounds. You're drafting the athleticism. You're drafting the 4.6, 40. You're drafting some of those throws. You're drafting some of the highlight tape, but you aren't really drafting the production. Like his production score was a 58, right? Like he played 1 year as a starter, and even that year wasn't that good. So he's this crazy mixture of a developmental guy, a raw product, but incredibly experienced.
Definitely what soon to be in September 26-year-old Tyler Shough brings to the table. So there's a lot to hit on here. I mean, 7 years at the college level is definitely one asterisk here. It's not just what he puts out on the field, but maybe let's start there. What did you really appreciate? What did you really grab?
Craziest stat of all time. I've said this before, but I'll say it again. Insane stat. When Tyler Shough went to Oregon in 2018, when he started his college journey, Kelvin Banks Jr. was 14 years old. Tyler Shough and Kelvin Banks Jr. are both drafted by the Saints in the 2025 draft, and both played the exact same amount of college games, 42.
Gravitate to when watching Tyler Shough this past year at Louisville.
He's almost like a nostalgic quarterback to me, like the classic 2010 quarterback, very live arm, but also like a risk-averse style. And that's in like every single capacity we're going to be talking about here. He only had 4 turnover-worthy plays last season on first and second down. He had a couple plays on third down and fourth down, like third and
You know who he kind of reminds me of? Like he kind of reminds me, like they said it, like that kind of old school quarterback. He reminds me of like the Blaine Gabberts. He reminds me of the Brock Osweilers, like these big 6'5", 6'6", super live arm, relatively athletic, but not like a true runner. I mean, Tyler Shough didn't run that much in college. It's like he is kind of a throwback to that world.
18s and stuff where you just throw the ball up. He definitely is willing to throw that ball away, maybe too much. But he also under pressure doesn't take sacks. 9% sack rate while under pressure is also the best in the class. There's reasons for that, like he's kind of timid at times, will just throw the ball away. I thought his accuracy was solid, not fantastic. His arm strength is good. It's not fantastic, but just the fact that you can get like under center play action reps on his tape, and he's at least has the functional athleticism on bootlegs and to play a little bit out of structure at times. You can see him at least every single play in the playbook, aside from the quarterback design stuff, is available to him. So I thought you put it well with just the quarterback coaches are going to gravitate to this guy because maybe when they were playing quarterback back in the day, it looked more like this than what we're used to in modern football.
Which is interesting. Okay, this is a great point here because look at the Saints decision makers. Kellen Moore, quarterback. Scott Tolzien, quarterback. Doug Nussmeier, quarterback. So if a bunch of those guys are in the room, of course they're going to gravitate to this guy.
Yeah, he looks like the old, to me, and other people might disagree with this, statue quarterback that can execute the game plan. Yeah. Now, this is not the type of quarterback that I gravitate to, but I'm just here talking about this at my desk online to an audience of YouTube, by the way. If you're new around here, hit that subscribe button. He is so risk averse and so averse to taking contact that to me, that's only going to be magnified when he reaches the NFL.
Yeah, like that's one of those things we've talked about where some of the stuff that you have to look at with a collegiate quarterback is how they feel with pressure, how they feel in the pocket, how they read the pocket, how they feel pressure. Do they feel it before it's actually there? You know, those kind of things are just inherent to a player. And very rarely does that change whether they're playing in college or playing in the pros. It's just kind of how they're wired. You know, you can teach footwork and arm slot and stuff like that, but you can't really teach that, like, how you are feeling inside of that pocket. So that's something that is very important.
I mentioned the pressure to sack numbers, and we mentioned those all the time when talking about NFL players and college prospects. An 8.9% pressure to sack rate this year. Now, the big caveat, he had 31 throwaways this past season. I'll repeat that, 31. That is 7.9% of all of his passing attempts this past year. And they were kind of ridiculous and laughable and comedic at times, to the point that if there's a free rusher and he's terrified, he's like granny throwing this 5 yards down the field, and he would almost rather take an intentional grounding than taking a sack.
Like that's kind of shocking. I mean, when you hear that, it's like, whoa, okay, hold on a second. What's going on here?
And there were like just a couple of moments. It's not just the throwaways. It's the, I'm going to hang in here with a 1v1 of a free rusher, either on a delayed blitz or a guy who, you know, escapes the grasp of an offensive lineman, to make this throw down the field to allow my team to have a third down conversion or get into the red zone or get into the end zone. There was like one of those nice throws against Notre Dame, but I can throw like 10 to 15 to 20 at you for every single one that he actually hung in there and didn't fade away. And I just think, again, he's going to see those types of plays so much more often in the NFL. I think he was hit on 35 dropbacks this year and completed only 12 of those passes. Yeah. And so that's like as red of a flag as you can get.
Yeah, I mean, like those are those things. Whenever we sit back and, you know, we hear like, oh, the arm talent, he can, like, these are the things you really have to look at. When you are in the NFL, when you are in the NFL draft, every single quarterback has arm talent. Every single quarterback can make the throws. Every single quarterback has anticipation. You know, like I think we were talking about Quinn Ewers, and someone was like, he is elite from 20 yards and in. And it's like, brother, I'm elite from 20 yards and in. You know, like, this is the NFL. If you're a starting quarterback in the NFL, it's not just arm talent. It's not just like, you have to be able to do this. These are the kind of things you have to look at.
For me, when it comes to quarterback process.
Yeah, that to me is way bigger of a deal than the injury history that we're going to talk to. And I think those two things are probably a little bit correlated to one another. But in my last line for my write-up on him, he has to figuratively stand tall in the pocket. You just can't be 6 foot. You have to literally stand tall under the barrel and rip off some of these shots. And he just was not willing to do it enough.
Right, exactly. It's like, okay, he's 6'5". Cool. Does he play like he's 6'5"?
And that's especially true if you're going to be living in the play action world. And I have some stats on the play action attempts where he did get under center a lot with them. And there's a couple of really nice throws, like some of the best play action throws of all the quarterback prospects are Tyler Shough's. But there's other times where he would flip his head and all of a sudden a pressure that he wasn't expecting is in his lap. and it's panic time. So like he would get into the panicky situations there and just throw the ball away. And those aren't as bad as sacks and interceptions, but they're just not a good trait to have. So if he doesn't stand tall in the pocket, you can't be Jared Goff. You can't.
Yeah. So, I mean, here you go. So quarterbacks versus pressure sorted by quarterback rating. So obviously the top is the best. Shough is 4th out of the 5. He's 6.9 yards per attempt, which is markedly lower. Him and Milrow are around the same. 9% sack, 9% scramble.
Be Ryan Tannehill. You can't be these like pocket passers that can thrive in this structured offense. You can't do it unless you're willing to stand in there and get lit up.
Now, maybe it was coaching this year, because the year before he had a 23% pressure to sack rate and only threw the ball away on 2.7% of his dropback. So it's maybe something that.
Okay, so that's another, sure, that's good context. And that, what did they say? He was almost at 10%, so he jumps up almost 7% in a year. So yeah, maybe the coaches at Louisville are like, just throw it away, just dump it off, throw it away, get rid of it. And maybe that is something that we can see come down a little bit to the mean, and maybe it's more of a 5% rate.
Brom instilled with him at Louisville, but I'm just going to say like that's who he is now, and it kind of extends more to the throwaways than to me. If something goes wrong within the structure of a play, either a wide receiver runs the wrong route, or the defense rotates in an unexpected way for him, or he makes like the wrong pre-snap read. Again, an offensive lineman or a running back don't have their pass pro assignment. What trait does he have to make it right? It's not the toughness to hang in there versus that free rushers we've already talked about. To me, there's not much suddenness or quickness in his movements. Sure, he has almost this like gangling, long striding rollout style of athleticism, but that's not going to make a 1v1 defender miss. And so like that lack of creativity to me, especially on third downs, was like really apparent. He had to like,
but like, and again, like how much of a paradox is that, right? Like we're hearing 4'6" athlete, 6'5", all this stuff. You know, he's really good. When he's scrambling around or scrambling to his left, he's really good at this, really good at that. And then you hear this, and it's like, well, actually, not really. Like he can kind of stretch the play out. He's fast enough, but he's not really creatively willing enough to make someone miss or take on a defender or whatever. So he's just like this real big puzzle. Like every single thing that we've heard so far, it's like, yeah, he does have this. Like he's 6'5", but he's not really willing to stand in the pocket. Oh, he can make the throws, but he's more than willing to throw the ball away, which he shouldn't be.
Be totally perfect on all the other stuff for me to like him. And he certainly was not perfect on all the other stuff, because he was late to a bunch of reads. And I thought there were some placement issues too on top of it.
Yeah, his accuracy is just average, and like players like Jared Goff, who's like would be his upside-ish comp here, like those guys just don't miss passes at all. And there were some passes that Tyler Shough missed. I do think that his arm strength was good, and if he can get better with the toughness part of it, I do think there's enough passing element to his game within the structure of the offense. And his athleticism is very interesting, because like 4.63 is like speed is like no joke. Like that is like actually fast, but
that's like legit fast. I mean, that is fast. Like, that's not like, oh, okay, he can move a little bit. That's like, okay, hold on a second. This guy can fly.
He is straight line fast, and it's on him to decide when he's actually going to use it. There's a couple plays, like he had one play rolling left that just caught me by surprise, throwing that touchdown in the back of the end zone. I was like, what the hell is that all about? He has a couple plays out of structure, but just even like using that athleticism in the ground game, his max gain on a scramble this last year was at 9 yards. He only averaged 5 yards per scramble attempt. He ended up finishing with negative EPA on his rushing attempts.
So like that right there, again, like you're going to hear me say this over and over, but 4.6 speed, insanely fast. Longest run, 9 yards, negative EPA on rushes. How do those even fit? Like, how do those even line up?
He had like a couple red zone touchdowns over his course of his career with the scrambles, but you're not going to use him in the quarterback design stuff. He's going to pick up a 3rd and 6. You can definitely use him on the bootlegs. I think like that's going to be where his athleticism could potentially shine, but that's only so many plays that you have with him. He's not going to be making guys miss inside the pocket. So he has to be excellent under center, play action. To me, like it's those peak Ryan Tannehill years.
Oh, that's but Ryan Tannehill was a former wide receiver.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like the perfect comp. It seems like you're somewhere in between. you're somewhere in that like Brock Osweiler low. Osweiler is probably a bad comp because Osweiler's arm is kind of insane. But let's say like Tannehill, Goff high end, Tannehill medium end. Like if he's just above average, if Shough is just above average, and we get a pretty decent version, it's Ryan Tannehill. And then if he really evolves and transcends, he's Jared Goff. It seems like it's somewhere in there as far as like his comp.
For sure. Like that's what you're hoping Tyler Shough could turn into. I think that would be an awesome hit if that's what Tyler Shough turns into. But that's kind of like the path that he has to play.
Yeah, I just don't see them on like the same spectrum when it comes to athleticism. Okay, so there were some of the positives and some of the negatives of just him on the field. Do you want to go through the timeline of how someone that is, again, going to be 26 years old in September, who has been in college football for the last 7 years, who is in the same recruiting class at Oregon with Penei Sewell, is now someone we're talking about here on April 15th in 2025.
Yeah.
Played at Oregon with Juwan Johnson, was Justin Herbert's backup at Oregon. Like some of the statistics of the timeline is insane. And I really do think the craziest part of it is that he was in college for so long but played so little. I mean, I think we did the stats. Bo Nix played like 20 more games than him, but was in college. Bo Nix's entire college career started the year after Tyler Shough got to Oregon and ended a year before Tyler Shough's ended. Crazy.
Yeah, I would say it's like one of the worst
20 more games.
Strings of luck that you can.
Like, just think about that mathematically. Bo Nix gets to college a year after Tyler Shough. Tyler Shough stays in college a year longer than Bo Nix. Bo Nix plays 60 games in that bubble and plays 20 more games than Tyler Shough. It's like, how the hell did any of that make sense?
Possibly have. So he goes in there in 2018 at Oregon. He's backing up this guy named Justin Herbert. 2019, same thing. In 2020, COVID happens. Oregon's first game, because of the Pac-12 was being cautious over there, wasn't until November. He only gets a couple starts there, is forced to transfer to Texas Tech in 2021. He's diving for a touchdown in 2021 and lands on his shoulder. The Texas Tech organization, they just said that you don't have to get surgery even though he's going to be out for the season. The next season, now we're in 2022, he's scrambling around in week 1 and lands on that same clavicle and re-injures it, and now actually has to have surgery. So that's
fun fact. I broke my collarbone in 3rd grade playing kickball. A guy was one of those kids. He was like 6'1", 214 in elementary school. And me and him were running for the ball. He slipped or I slipped and on the ball, and we landed like that. And I landed on the ground. He landed on my top shoulder, and it just crushed my collarbone. I went to a Catholic school this is like mid-90s. So it was run by nuns, very strict. I was like complaining about my arm, like whatever. Again, this is the mid-90s. And they said, here's a peppermint, get back to class. So I had to write, and I broke my right collarbone. And I'm right-handed, so I had to write all day in class. I broke it at recess, which was like 10 a.m. Had to go through the entire day of school with a broken collarbone. My grandpa picked me up from school that day, and I was like, crying. I was like, something's wrong here. We immediately go to the doctor, x-rays, boom, broken collarbone.
Season's more or less a lost cause. In 2023 at Texas Tech, he scrambles around up the middle, gets kind of a high ankle sprain. The very next play, he's standing inside the pocket and it's just like truly just standing there. And his leg completely snaps, kind of like what the Conor McGregor injury was like when you got like a little hairline, then it turns into a full broken leg. And then he finally transfers to Louisville this last year, finally plays a full season, all 12 games. So I do think that some of this like throwing the ball away early stuff is probably tied to the fact that he went clavicle, broken leg on like pretty fluke injuries.
But I mean, that's legit. Like that's something that is so hardwired in his head now, if that is what it is. There isn't enough coaching in the world to change how a person, like that kind of stuff happens. We see that all the time. Someone gets hurt, someone gets injured. We see it with boxers and stuff where they get like a serious injury to their eye. All of a sudden, they're really favoring it, like for the rest of their career. Same here, where is that something that because of those injuries, is that why he's throwing the ball away? Is that why he does not want to take hits and does not want to take pressure? I mean, it's not crazy.
If you're going to paint the optimistic picture here, it's that these are bones, not muscles and ligaments. Yeah. And if you are going to be picking one of those things, at least you would rather have bones that.
Yeah, the injuries actually aren't that big of a deal. The injuries are kind of like, collarbone, fibula, like that stuff just kind of happens. It's more about that psychological lingering that you'd be concerned about.
Heal better than torn ligaments and constant like pulled hamstrings. But I do think it did impact his play a little bit here. And for all those 7 seasons of being in college, he's pretty inexperienced inside the pocket. Like the number of dropbacks is like less than other guys in this draft class that we've talked about on this channel. So just because he's been in college for 7 years does not mean that he actually has a ton of on-field experience.
So just to throw out some comparisons, I mean, on the absolute high end, he runs hot, goes to a team with an incredible offensive line that, he's one of bottom 5 just in terms of total pressures that he faces in the NFL. Joe Flacco's at the very top for me.
Okay.
More likely, he becomes, and Dane Brugler threw out this comparison, Aiden O'Connell, and Ted Nguyen mentioned that maybe the most contact-averse quarterback out there has been Derek Carr, who has been known to throw passes out of bounds on 4th and 5 rather than actually giving any wide receivers chances to make plays because he just doesn't want to be hit. So the two last kind of Raiders quarterbacks blended together with those styles. And that, is going to start some games at some point during his NFL career.
Yeah, I mean, like, I heard the Carr comp as well. Carr, I don't know about, maybe just the throwing it away and all that stuff, because Carr does do that. And you wonder if Carr's broken leg affected him, and Carr is somebody who earlier in his career, like a lot of people said, he saw the pressure or felt the pressure before it was actually there. But the comps, like those comps of O'Connell, Gabbert, Tannehill, Flacco, Goff, Carr, like, okay, we're kind of getting somewhere now. Like, we're kind of building this quarterback of what we can kind of expect for the high end, the low end, and then the average of Tyler Shough.
But I am just not in the camp that is willing to take him on day 2 with a vision that he is going to turn into our quarterback, because man, oh man, do things get tighter, more contact, more physical, and faster in the league.
And this is something that I've been talking about, where because of his age and because of the Saints situation, Shough is in a spot where he kind of has to accelerate all of this really quickly. He kind of has to do this now. If he does not play or doesn't play well or whatever this first year, that means Rattler is playing. And what happens if Rattler looks good? Then the Saints, they wouldn't just rip Rattler to start Shough the following year. What if it takes Shough a couple of years? Well, that means Rattler is probably playing a couple of years. What if he plays well? What if there's development there? So Shough has to come in and do this really, really fast. And the things that you're asking him to do really, really fast are things that are kind of hard to teach. Like the taking the pressure, the standing in there, like some of this stuff is that kind of comes with time. So because he is an inexperienced player, even though he's played for a long time, he unfortunately does not have the runway to fix some of that inexperience, to develop a little bit. He is a developmental project quarterback who, unfortunately, with the Saints, will not be afforded a lot of time.
And if you're already, and again, it might have been coaching this year, not willing to like hang in there and make these tough plays or have some type of outlet when things do go wrong, then it's just not my flavor of quarterback.
Yeah, I think he's still going to go top 50. I think he's probably going to be right around that round 1-2 turn over there. So yeah, I threw out like my optimistic takes on him. I think like Mason Rudolph's another one of these guys kind of in this tier. I will say, like, if you look at the history of like round 2 quarterbacks recently, like, and round 3 guys that were like getting round 1, round 2 buzz, I liked him better than Will Levis, Ritter, Malik Willis, Matt Corral, Kyle Trask, Drew Lock. Yeah. I like Tyler Shough more than those guys. He's firmly a dart throw, and one that probably has a little bit less of a ceiling than some of the other dart throws like Jalen Milroe that we talked about on this channel, where like I would rather just completely swing for the fences.
So I said that during my immediate reaction, where they seem very different, Milroe and Shough, but they are kind of the exact same, where they're kind of raw, kind of inexperienced. Like you can see something there. There's some raw athleticism. But with Milroe, it's like, well, he has a much longer runway to develop that. Shough does not. So my thinking was, well, if you're going to do this, just do it with Milroe, because he probably does have the higher ceiling. Where if you do figure out the Milroe stuff, you probably do get a, whatever, like a Jalen Hurts or a fully realized version of Anthony Richardson or whatever. You do get like a game-changing kind of lottery ticket. Whereas with Shough, it's like, yeah, you probably get like and that's because of the running stuff. Because when a quarterback can do that, that opens up so much stuff. Shough doesn't have that, even though he has the 4.6. Whereas Shough, it's like, yeah, his lottery ticket is more like the Goff, Tannehill thing, Flacco, I guess. So I was in the camp of, if you're going to do this, just do it with Milroe.
And while he might have a little bit more of a chance to start right away,
and then if you say, well, Milroe can't throw, go back in this video and look at all these statistical things they're airing out, and Tyler Shough is right next to Milroe in all of these numbers.
It's not like he was like making decision after decision that was like completely pinpoint either. So I don't want to like oversell him. I do think that his in-pocket play was pretty good. He's not going to be turning the ball over a ton. He's not going to be taking horrendous sacks. So it just comes down to like, are you going to stand tall in the pocket? And if so, I do think there's a path to him being a starter like some of the guys you mentioned there. But you're going to have to build a pretty good offensive line around him. Right. For him to survive, I would have to guess.
Yeah, even like the Mac Jones career arc, I think is maybe in his future too, where like statistically a really good rookie season and a well-coached team. Mm-hmm. And then once pieces get removed from there and the team is in decline from a roster building standpoint, his play just totally tanks. Yeah. And then confidence is just completely lost on that end. And now he's just to me, career backup. So,
but unlike Mac Jones, like that's another thing where like, if that did happen, Shough he loses out on that because he doesn't get that second round of where we saw like Sam Darnold, Geno Smith, like those guys get that second arc. Shough's not going to get that second arc because if that happens, Shough will be 30 years old, right? I think, how old is Sam Darnold? I think Sam Darnold is pretty close to Tyler Shough's age. So if Shough does go the Mac Jones route where he has a decent rookie year, pieces fall apart around him, then he struggles, and then he goes somewhere else, and then, well, he's 30, right? Like, that's very different than what happened with Geno and Sam Darnold, and maybe even what will happen with Mac Jones.
So, yeah, I mean, again, if you're pristine conditions, then he's going to give you definitely some moments of executing what the lead up has been in terms of game planning for a defense. But I'm just nervous when one thing goes wrong and you're going to get some like real comedic moments out there.
Yeah, and I definitely want him in that under center play action offense. Like I want the offenses that we're just kind of making fun of,
which was the best thing for Jared Goff, where you're under center, play action, roll out, levels, concepts, make the throw. That's where Goff is his best.
Because everything's right on the platter for the quarterbacks. I want Shough in that. And I do think that if he is in one of those, he does have the touch and the arm talent to throw the ball over the middle.
But isn't that interesting too, where it's like, where's he at his best? A controlled environment, play action, safe in the pocket, like everything's on schedule. But we keep hearing like, oh, he's really good off schedule. So yeah, but that's not where you want him. You don't. He has the arm talent and athleticism to get off schedule, but it's not in his wheelhouse. The guy, I mean, it really is a crazy little situation here.
Not at an elite level, but at a functional starter level. So we'll see where he goes. I think this could be one where if he goes to the wrong team, a team that needs a guy to be a guy, I would be pretty nervous.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm a sicko. My brain just kept going to, okay, what if he faces, Brian Flores in week 2 of his first career?
That was Goff early in his career. Like that's where I was like the upside case to me is still Goff, but Goff's just better accuracy.
Oh yeah,
like first overall accuracy. Shough doesn't have that, but like
younger.
The young, in my notes I have old Jared Goff, old Ryan Tannehill as the comps.
But no, you're right. I mean, Goff during the early portions of his career had the biggest cliff of any quarterback.
Yeah, Goff was absolutely elite. The greatest, like the. If you want to go back and really do some like film watching, go watch Rams Chiefs. It was like 55-56, and Goff outdueled Mahomes. Like it wasn't like he just beat him. Goff was the best player on the field in a game where he had to be the best player on the field. That's what Goff could do with the Rams when he was on schedule, on time, play action. He could roll out. There was another game, infamously, where Sean McVay called it was 13 consecutive play action rollout passes because it was just working and Goff could do it. Goff is crazy early Goff, because you would get those moments like against the Chiefs where it's like, damn, if he's in his lane, he's the greatest player in the league. And then, but man, if you got him out of that, if you got him outside, it was cold, if you were blitzing him, if he couldn't do the play action, if he's playing from behind or whatever, then he completely fell apart. He ended up becoming a little bit different later on, but go watch the Rams-Chiefs game. It's wild.
Yeah. Of unpressured to pressured completion rate or whatever underlying metrics you want to look at. He also just hits that back foot and rips a dig.
Boom.
No matter what.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Tyler Shough has that in him too. So that's just me.
Yeah. We'll see. I like him maybe a little bit more than you, but I'm not convinced.
All right. That does it. As always, click around the channel. We've got plenty of prospect profiles on wide receivers.
Damn. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are, like I said, we are calling it like we see it. Look, we showed a ton of plays here. We're talking about underlying metrics. We are really peeling back the onion. Okay, this isn't just, look at the box score and that's it. We're like, what makes this guy tick? What is he? What are these metrics? What's he do well? What's he do bad? And no one else does it like me. All right, get on down in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video.